All right, ladies and gentlemen, lesson 44 today is all about rationalizing the denominators. Now, what that means is we're always going to have a fraction whenever you see the word rational. That's what that's talking about. And with this, we're going to have to do something with the denominator. For these problems, as you can see, we have some square roots in here. And for all three of these, the square root is in the denominator. One of the rules that we have with math is you can't have a square root in the denominator. So how do we get it out? All right, the first thing is when we only have one term in the denominator, like all three of these do, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply both top and bottom by the square root that we have on the bottom here. Okay, now technically you could multiply both top and bottom by 3 square roots of 7, but all we have to do is get this square root out of the bottom to have this simplified. If you multiplied by 3 square roots of 7, that's fine. You would just have some extra simplifying to do at the end. So we have this set up, multiplying top and bottom by square root of 7. Now we multiply the tops. So we get 4 square root of 7 over, then multiply the bottoms. The square root of 7 times square root of 7 is 7. 7 times 3 is 21. Now, this 7 and this 21 cannot be simplified because this 7 is under the square root sign. This is not. So this would be fully simplified here. All right, if we come over to this one over here, all right, now there's a couple different ways to do this, but what we see first of all is we have this square root in the bottom. So if we followed what we did over here, what we could do is we could multiply top and bottom by the square root of 12. All right, and when we do that, we get square root of 12 on the top. And then on the bottom, square root of 12 times square root of 12 is square root of 144, which is 12. Now, as always, with any fraction, we have to check and see if we can simplify. Over here, we couldn't simplify anything. Now here, we can't simplify top and bottom right now because this is under the square root sign and this is not. But our square root of 12, we can simplify. Now remember, when you have square roots, you can end up doing a factor tree for this. 4 times 3 gives you 12, and then 4 is 2 and 2. And since we have a pair of 2's here, that would mean for the square root of 12, we would have a 2 come to the outside, and a 3, because it doesn't have a pair, goes back underneath. All right, and then we still have this 12 here. Now, the 2 and the 12 are both outside the square root sign, so then we can simplify things down. This 2 goes away, this 12 turns into a 6, and we have square root of 3 over 6. These cannot be simplified, though, because this is under the square root sign and this is not. So this would be simplified then. All right, if we come down here to this one, we have a square root containing the entire top and the bottom. Well, what happens with this one is we can split that square root sign between the top and the bottom. So we'd have square root of 1 over square root of 8. Square root of 1 is equal to 1. Square root of 8, now if you wanted to, you could simplify this first before you started moving that square root of 8 up. As you guys know, 8 is 4 and 2. And then we have a 2 and a 2 here. So if you wanted to, you could simplify your square roots before you move them. We could have done this with the second problem up here. All right, for this one, this becomes 2 square roots of 2 on the bottom. Now, just like before, we've got this square root on the bottom. We have to get it out. We multiply top and bottom by a square root of 2. So then 1 times square root of 2 is square root of 2. On the bottom, we have square root of 2 times square root of 2, which is 2 times 2 is 4. And then our answer for this one is square root of 2 over 4. All right, now I do realize that a lot of your calculators can do this for you. All right, you have to go through the process of showing me how to do this. If you don't show me how, and you just write down an answer, I'm not going to give you full credit for it because I know a lot of your calculators can do this. All right, you have to go through the steps because it does say simplify. Simplify is not just writing down the new answer. You got to show me how. all right? And that's what we're doing right here. Now, if we go to the next page, we still have fractions here, but for this one, we still have a square root in the bottom, but we don't have one term down here. We have two terms. All right, whenever you have two terms, you are going to multiply by something. Well, what we did on the last one is we multiplied by square root of 5 over square root of 5. Now, the top would get exactly what you wanted, 3 square root of 5. Now, the bottom, we are hoping to multiply by square root of 5 here to get rid of the square root. But that doesn't happen here because we would have to FOIL this out. This becomes -3 square root of 5 plus square root of 5 times square root of 5 is 5. So we did get rid of this square root of 5, but we didn't get it for the other one. So that didn't do us any good. So then what we have to do is we got to come up with a different way of doing it. All right, now that different way, whenever you have two terms, we're going to multiply by what's called the conjugate. The conjugate is rewriting the entire expression, except we're going to switch the sign in between. Notice we did not switch the sign out front. We switched the sign in between. So we're going to multiply top and bottom by -3 minus square root of 5. So we got to run this 3 through here. So this becomes -9 minus 3 square root of 5. And then our bottom, we would have to FOIL this out. -3 times -3 is 9. -3 times negative square root of 5 is positive 3 square roots of 5. Square root of 5 times -3 is -3 square roots of 5. And then square root of 5 times negative square root of 5 is -5. Now, what we notice here is we do have to combine like terms, and if we look at our middle terms here, those end up canceling out. And every time that you multiply by the conjugate, those will cancel out. So we're going to do a shortcut for the next one. All right, but before we do that, we got to simplify this. All right, at the top, there's not anything that we can do, so we're just going to rewrite that. On the bottom, we've got 9 minus 5 is 4. All right, now, last thing you have to check and see if you can simplify this. Now with this one, I get that you could pull out a -3 on the top. All right, but that -3 does not cancel with anything on the bottom down here. So I would just leave it alone. There's no reason to pull that -3 out. And our answer just ends up being this right here. All right, now for the next one, we have 5 over the square root of 7 plus the square root of 2. We have two terms down here. Now, we do have two square roots. It's not going to change our process, though. We're still going to multiply by the conjugate. And remember what that is square root of 7, square root of 2. Rewrite those, but change the sign in between. So that becomes a minus. And we're going to do that on top and bottom here. Now, when we multiply the top out, we get 5 square root of 7 minus 5 square root of 2. On the bottom, remember, we're multiplying the conjugate. So technically, all we have to do, those middle terms will cancel. So we just have to multiply the first. Square root of 7 times square root of 7 is 7, minus square root of 2 times square root of 2 is 2. And now we can combine like terms on the bottom. This would become 5 square root of 7 minus 5 square root of 2 all over 5. Now what we see is we do have an extra step. We can pull a 5 out of the top. Now do remember, this is in parentheses. This is an expression. So we have to factor out a 5 there. When we factor out that 5, we get 5 on the outside. Then we've got square root of 7 minus square root of 2 all over 5. These 5s now end up canceling. So our answer is square root of 7 minus the square root of 2. All right, do remember these are not like terms, so we can't combine those in any way. We just got to write it down. All right, and then for our last page, they're more complicated, but it's doing the exact same thing here. 4 plus the square root of 3 over 2 minus 3 square roots of 3. We have a square root down here with multiple terms, so we got to multiply top and bottom by the conjugate of the bottom. So that's going to be 2 plus 3 squared is 3 on both the top and the bottom here. Now, foiling for this gets a little bit long, but it's something that you can do. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 squared is 3 is 12 squared is 3. Our inners is square root of 3 times 2, so that's a positive 2 squared is 3. And then our last, square root of 3 times 3 squared is 3. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 3 times 3 is 9. On the bottom, 2 times 2 is 4. Remember, we're just doing the first and the last because these are conjugates. Minus square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 3 times 3 is 9 times this 3 over here is 27. All right, and then from here, we just got to combine like terms. So 8 plus 9 is 17. Our square roots of 3, we have 14 of them. And then on the bottom, we have negative 23. And there's nothing here that we can pull out of the top that's going to cancel with the bottom. So there's our answer. All right, for the last one here, we're going to do the same concept. Multiply top and bottom by the conjugate. So 4 plus 3 squared is 5, both top and bottom. All right, when we do that, we FOIL this out. 5 times 4 is 20. Plus 5 times 3 squared is 5 is 15 squared is 5. Plus square root of 5 times 4 is 4 squared is 5. Plus square root of 5 times 3 squared is 5. Square root of 5 times square root of 5 is 5 times 3 is 15. On the bottom, FOIL it. 4 times 4 is 16. Minus the square root of 5 times square root of 5 is 5 times 3 is 15 times this other 3 is 45. Time to combine like terms. 20 plus 15 is 35. Plus 15 squared is 5 plus 4 squared is 5 is 19 squared is 5. All over 16 minus 45 is negative 29. Nothing you can simplify there, so there's our answer. Now, I get that we didn't simplify anything on these last two. Sometimes that's the case, sometimes it's not. So do make sure that you check these. All right, and that is it for rationalizing denominators here. Just remember, you are always just simplifying. So you're trying to get the square root out of the bottom. If you ever see that, that is your first job. All right. This is for Monday, so I should be back tomorrow. All right. If you have any questions at all, you can get a hold of me. Schoology, text, however you need to. And we'll get those questions answered as quickly as we can.